So just give us 1 minute, sir, for the participants to be allowed in.
Yeah.
Then you can, Dr. Alex can start with the welcome note.
Can we start, Vijay?
Yes, sir. It's 160 plus. You can start now.
Yeah. So, good evening to all of you, especially our nursing colleagues. On behalf of AHPI and Microlabs, I want to give you a warm welcome to all of you, and all of us, the rest of the community, join hands to applaud the noble profession of nursing, especially today being the 200th birth anniversary of Florence Nightingale. And also, I'm sure that WHA didn't know it at that time, though it was designated the year of the nurse. I think in this environment of COVID, our nurses, who are the most silent performers in any healthcare organization, they're the biggest and the most vital department in any healthcare sector. And in this, probably the biggest war that mankind has fought, the nurses, as always, are in the forefront, tending to COVID patients, oftentimes unable to care for their near and dear ones. Very briefly about AHPI, we are a pan-India organization with 20 chapters, closely working with the government and society in the area of health and medical reform. And especially in this time of the COVID pandemic, we are working very closely with the governmental and other organizations. I want to start off with welcoming Dr. Devi Shetty, welcoming both our senior colleagues and our colleagues from Microlabs. So I'd hand over to Dr. Gyan to take things forward. Thank you once again. On behalf of all of us, we salute our nursing colleagues all over the country and all over the world.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Alex. And let me say good evening to my Indian colleagues here and good morning to the listeners in USA. Let me start with the webinar by saying that our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, right in the morning tweeted 3 comments for the nursing community. And one which I'm quoting here, he said, nursing community is extremely hardworking and personify the abundant compassion. You know, that was his words. I also like to mention, to Susan was talking to me, that when we started the NABH journey, that is accreditation journey in India, we, right from the beginning, we made nurse as the equal partner with the assessment team. So that was the beginning of the empowerment of the nurse. And when I get into the healthcare industry in a big way, I learned from my colleague or good friend, Dr. Devi Shetty, who actually always talked about the empowerment of the nursing community. And he has been stressing on the career progression of the nursing community. I think because of his effort, a lot of things have already happened, and I am very happy that he is going to open the webinar with his keynote. Welcome to Dr. Devi Shetty.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gyani. Thanks, Alex. Thanks to everybody, including Microlab, my friend Dilip Surana. I think you all have heard enough about the COVID and the contribution of nurses in the fight against the COVID. So let me not get into that area. First of all, I would like to wish all the nurses of India and outside India very, very happy International Nursing Day. Now, coming back to Indian nurses who are close to my heart, we have been talking a lot about nurses' empowerment and nurses' career progression. We have made great progress, but that is not enough. We need to look at a lot more responsibilities, in clinical responsibilities taken by our nurses, which should match with a higher remuneration. The hospitals are pressurized by the policymakers that nurses should be paid higher salary. We agree, nurses should be paid double or triple than what they're earning. But then their role should change. They can't be doing same thing what they did and expect higher salary. They should be legally permitted to work as a nurse practitioner rather than a GNM or a basic nurse. It is very, very important that the career progression of the nurses should happen. Nurses should become nurse practitioners. How will it happen? If the nurses expect doctors to fight their battle and make it happen, you are mistaken. It is never going to happen. If you want a better career for yourself, you all should organize yourself. You have to change the narrative. Change the narrative from higher salary to higher responsibility, higher career progression. And by getting the major clinical responsibilities as a nurse practitioner practicing in different parts of the world, automatically your salary will go up. It will go up much, much more than what you would get by the government policies. That is nothing. Now, all these demands have been pending for a long time. The government has the intention to promote nursing career so that young girls, when they are about to choose which way to go, whether to become an engineer or or nursing or a medicine or any of those professions, nursing profession should stand tall along with the other professions. Today, it is not happening because of the poor remuneration. And believe me, the kind of a remuneration our nurses are paid, it is no more an attractive profession for young people. Now, for this transition to happen, nurses should be allowed to become like a nurse practitioners a nurse practitioner working in rural India. She should be allowed to prescribe at least basic drugs in rural India, important for the primary health care. If that happens, most of the problem we are facing in primary care in rural India will be addressed. Then the nurse practitioners can assist in the dialysis room, in the intensive care unit, and many other places. Of course, it will not happen without proper credentialing, proper training program. Fortunately, Indian Nursing Council has launched these courses, but unfortunately, the courses haven't become very popular because the remuneration is not matching with the expectations. Now, remuneration is not matching because there is no higher clinical responsibilities. Clinical responsibilities only happen if the Ministry of Health mandates that a nurse practitioner in rural India is allowed to do this, or a nurse practitioner in critical care unit is allowed to this, and that is not happening. They have to clearly spell out. And this can only happen if the senior nurses get together and present to the government in the format they like to see. And believe me, good number of doctors will also support you. But do not expect the doctors to fight your battle. Now, next question we all have to address is how the nursing education happens. It is very, very important that we influence the policymakers about changing the way nurses are trained. Today, the curriculum makes them sit in the classroom for hours and hours together. We believe that after the first year of nursing, nurses should be made to spend most of their time on the patient bedside. It is very, very important that every nurse is made to work in the ICU of some description for at least 1 year, even if she is not interested in ICU care. Why it is important that the nurse works in the ICU, even if she is not interested in the ICU care, is because once you work in the ICU, you will learn the art of managing low cardiac output and all the cardiac and non-cardiac emergencies. You will be very familiar with all the gadgets attached to the patients, because healthcare, it's a matter of time before it becomes an interaction between the man and the machine. So it is very, very important that all the nurses are comfortable in interpreting a ECG. It doesn't matter whether you're a gynecology nurse or a cardiac nurse or nursing looking after the dialysis room. ECG is the fundamental investigation done on every patient. So nurse should be able to confidently interpret a ECG. Nurse should be able to manage low cardiac output. Not that every place where you work, there will be senior doctors to assist you. All these skills can be earned if a student nurse spends 1 year hands-on managing a ventilated patient in the ICU. She should be very familiar with how to manage a patient on ventilator. And it is not a rocket science. If she spends 1 year, believe me, she will learn. So essentially, we have to now look at a nurse when she comes out of the nursing college, not as a young nurse who after the graduation undergoes training in critical care unit or any of the important areas. She should be a nurse when she comes out of the nursing college. She should be a nurse who's capable of managing a patient on a ventilator in any part of the world as soon as she graduates. This is how we have trained all our nurses at our nursing school in Bangalore. And I feel so happy when these girls, they would have finished their exam. They didn't even receive the pass degree certificate from the university. They flashed the appointment letter for a job in our hospital in Cayman Island with a salary of over 1 to 1.5 lakh rupees. And they're hardly 23-year-old. Now, what is the difference? The only difference is these girls and boys, they have spent a lot of the time near the bedside. And this is what is important. The second most important thing is nursing schools have to insist that all the girls and boys, the students of the nursing college, should be prepared for appearing for IELTS or one of this entrance exam to US and UK or any of the first world countries. Why is that? A nurse's dream, a nurse working in India or a student nurse, only dream is to go to Middle East. That is not end of the world. I'm not against them going to Middle East. They should aim to go to US or they should aim to go to Europe or Australia, any of the first world countries. In what way our girls and boys are inferior to those students? They are inferior because we are not training them to pass those entrance exams. So if we tweak our curriculum, if we change our orientation, that a nurse graduating from Indian nursing school can compete with any of the other nurses and crack the entrance exam to any of the first world countries, then we not only produce global nurses, the overall quality of the nursing in our own country will really improve. And who is going to do it? No angel from the heaven will come down and make it happen. It is the duty and responsibility of all the senior nurses that we have to change the way we train our nurses. And when the nurses come out of the nursing college, they have to have a different career progression. Nobody, if a nurse dreams of becoming a doctor, she should have a career pathway. Medical colleges have to reserve certain percentage of the seats for girls and boys graduating from nursing college. Who are we to say that if you are a nurse, you are going to retire as a nurse? If she has the aspiration to become something else, There has to be if she doesn't deserve, if she's not capable, fine. Don't allow her to get the degree. But never say that just because you are a nurse, you can't join the medical college. So essentially, we have to question the past. Future is different. How the future will be is entirely dependent on us. Future is never an extension of the past. Today is the time. Today, healthcare industry is at the forefront of all the discussions in every boardroom and every household. This is the time for all the senior nurses to come out and say that whatever has happened in the past, it's okay. The future is different, and we are going to create a new future for our nursing faculty. And that can only happen if the nurses decide that this is the way we want to go, we want to proceed. Good luck and God bless.
Thank you so much, Dr. Devi. And in fact, such an excellent note he has made it. And I'm going to invite what he was mentioning, the senior nurses have to come forward to take this roadmap. I'm going to invite the first speaker, Dr. Jaya Kuruvilla, who is the principal, College of Nursing, PD, Hinduja National Hospital and MRC. Past, she was the Dean Allied Faculty of the Maharashtra University of Health Sciences. Her area of interest are critical care nursing, education, research and administration, and above all, the alternative medicine. I think she is going to set the tone for this webinar, as suggested by Dr. Devi Shetty. So I welcome Professor Dr. Jaya.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm really delighted to be sharing this webinar platform with Dr. Giridhar Gyan, who is synonym for quality. We all know him as quality person. And Dr. Devi Shetty, I hadn't met him or seen him, but again, his image in our mind is somebody who is for nurses and who does everything for the career progression, and especially when the nurse practitioner program was started in INC. As he rightly mentioned, unfortunately, even we ourselves were not able to take it through. And Dr. Alex, the president of AHPI, and the topic that Mr. Shikhar and my co-speaker Susan, let me go on with the topic that is being assigned to me, that is caring with mental and physical endurance. Vijay, can I have the slides coming up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And please go ahead, ma'am. Slide has been shared. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's not really. You are operating it, or I'll operate?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be operating, ma'am. You can say next slide.
Okay. Fine. Okay. So the topic that is mental and caring with mental and physical endurance, which is for the nurses, which is very appropriate at this point of time when nurses are challenged to take care of the COVID patients. Next, click the next one. Why do we need to talk about this? Click again, Vijay. The reason is that nurses are undergoing a lot of stress. Every day they face the stress because of the erratic work environment, staffing shortages, and that may also result in negative patient outcome. Because the nurse is stressful, it is important that she needs to take care of herself. Next slide, please. Next slide, Vijay. The importance of self-care in nursing. It is a myth that taking care of ourselves is selfishness, or self-care isn't being selfish. We being nurses and we being the women always switch into the mode of nurturing, forgetting that it is necessary for us to take care of ourselves. If the nurse is not healthy, she is going to contract the disease, especially under the present scenario, and she may eventually develop chronic health conditions and she may not be able to take care of her patients well. So do not wait for others to take care of you. Why should nurses improve their physical and mental endurance? Click Vijay. Please go ahead, Vijay. So there are many studies which says that nurses are undergoing a lot of stress in their occupation and it adversely affects their job. Now, burnout is something which is the severe form of stress. If that is not addressed, hospitals stand to lose, as well as our nurses become disengaged and eventually leaving the profession, adding to the attrition. Let's click video. So severe levels of stress can negatively affect the patient care. And if nurses' personal wellness suffers, they cannot be at their best. And then they are not able to take care of their patients. And not only the patients, even the families are affected. Next slide. Next slide, please. Now, these are some of the physical health tips. I think I will skip this slide because these are things which are known to all of us except few things. One is that joining a fitness club may not be at all times possible. But for the young nurses, I think it is an attractive option to learn Zumba and practice yoga at home. And regular checkup, which every nurse forgets. But thanks to NABH has come out with the mandatory reason that every nurse working or every person who comes in contact with patients should have annual checkup. But what about those multitude of nurses who are not working in those hospitals which are not accredited by NABH? Now, coming to mental health tips, again, I have mentioned few, but I may not deal with everything in detail. Number one, meditation, all of us are aware, yoga, spirituality is picking up a lot of importance these days, relaxation techniques, healthy friendship and relationship, which can be a buffer at the time of stress. And lastly, the sixth point is resilience, which I would deal with in little more in detail later. And what you see, winning ways to the well-being: connect, give, connect, talk and listen, and be there, but avoid gossip, especially gossip about the patients. Give your time, give your words, give your presence. And remember the simple thing that gives you joy. It may be a small hobby that you may develop, and keep learning, embrace new experience, see opportunities, and that will surprise yourself. So this has some winning ways to remaining or maintaining your well-being. Next slide. So this is something, a three-tier strategies to promote well-being of nurses. This is something which we have tried out. We have not completed it, but it is working out well. So I thought I'll share with everyone. At the college or at the Institute of Nursing Education, it is necessary that a reformation has to happen in the curriculum. And value-added module on happiness can be added, and also subjects to improve the personal skills, especially problem solving and coping skills. Emotional intelligence is something which can be added to the curriculum, and especially IMC is coming out with the new curriculum. There may be possibility of an elective, so then we may be able to add them. At institutional level, including the hospital stress management and resiliency training, workstation wellness intervention, and periodic session for water break and relaxation, a dashboard where nurse can assess the well-being index, and a facility like what we have, we named it as Mind Spa, where you can carry out all this relaxation, meditation, yoga, etc. And preventive counseling should be in place. Next slide, please, Vidya. Next slide. Okay, now I would like to talk a little more about resilience, because according to me, under the present circumstances, whatever is happening, I think all of us are wondering when the normalcy is going to come back. And some may become impatient about getting back to normalcy. So resilience is something which is specially required for nurses, so that they are prepared enough to tackle the daily stresses and the challenges the job throws at them. It is a paper which is written about nurses' well-being and supporting and encouraging resilience. And they say that a practice of resilience helps them to cope with the stress that is present along with the job. Next slide, please. Next slide, Vijay. What is resilience? It is the ability to return to a state of normalcy or to be back from the adversity or trauma and remain focused and optimistic about the future. I would give little more importance to what is written down. Nurse leaders, both at college, the previous one, and at the hospital may benefit from understanding how resilience applies to their staff and the students, and to enhance resilience in our nurses. Is complete the full video. So this talks about all the stressors a nurse may undergo in the hospital. I won't describe each one. I'm sure all of you can relate yourself with each of the points that I have put there. Work overload, role conflict. Nurse happens to do everything and everybody else's job. Ultimately, she doesn't even find satisfaction from what she did. Lack of time, lack of self-care, poor interpersonal relationship, powerlessness, and excessive demands from everyone, from patient, from hospital management, from everybody else. Death, we may think that death is a common occurrence, but we do not understand how a nurse feels when a patient dies, when she has taken care of that patient with utmost care. And she sometimes sees it as a failure of her care. And then conflict with the other professionals and peers and authority, all this can result in stress. And resilience is a strategy which, if we can create among our nurses, they would be able to overcome this. Next slide, please, Vidya. So it is an imperative quality for nurses because of the stressful nature of the profession. There are many studies done. I'm not going into the detail, but I have just shown them. And they have shown that those who have high levels of resilience are less likely to develop this stress disorders and more likely to remain in the profession as healthy nurses. Also, there are evidence to show that resilience can buffer the negative impact of workplace stressor, and it is linked to favorable patient outcome. Next slide, please, Vidya. Let's look at what are the characteristics of a resilient nurse. So as I talk, let us evaluate ourselves. How many of us have all these resilient characteristics of a resilient nurse? Number one, coping. She's able to cope with any situation. Optimism, even at the negative situation, try to be optimistic. We always think about the full glass and the half glass. Self-efficacy and sense of humor. It can bring about miracles when we are going through stress. Be in control, whatever happens. Competency. Without competency, you cannot be a resilient nurse. And then hope within yourself to instill hope in other people. Spirituality, we can consider it as a tool. A nurse who practices spiritual practices, we can move into a resilient nurse. Next slide, please, Vidya. 7 habits of resilient nurse. Mindfulness. be mindful about present moment. And in fact, Dr. Shetty used those words. We either live in the past or we live in the future, forgetting to live in the present. Today as it comes, take the day as one day at a time, or for a nurse, 1 minute at a time, from the time you have joined into the duty. And beginner's mind, what I mean by beginner's mind here, after you complete 2 to 3 years of experience, you think that you know everything. But a nurse should think that I'm starting my work today, I'm starting my career as a nurse today. So you will always be willing to learn more and listen to others. So that could be beginner's mind. Letting go. There are things for which we cannot fight for everything. There are some things we need to prioritize there, what we need to get it and what we need to let go. Compassion is true quality of a nurse. Gratitude to everyone. Authenticity, what I mean, maybe the correct other word to use is be genuine. A genuine nurse is a resilient nurse. And lastly, the commitment. A committed nurse is always a resilient nurse. Next slide, please.
You have, Professor, just 3-4 minutes.
Yeah, I'm finishing. I'll finish. Okay, cultivating resilience in a nurse. I think I leave this this one. It is showing that there are so many nurses left NHS, and if we could have, they could have created resilience, it would have been easier to retain them. Next slide, please, Vijay. So key strategies to promote resilience: build self-esteem, maintain supportive network, try to be as flexible as possible, set reasonable goals, develop positive thinking and optimism, pay attention to your needs, recognize and avoid the organizational weakness. Next slide. Next slide, please, Vijay. Vijay, next slide. Okay, after I have talked about the pairing with physical and mental endurance, today being the Nurses' Day, just to bring to everybody's notice the theme which is being selected by the WHO, Nurses, a voice to lead, nursing the world to health. All nurses are leading the whole world to health and focuses on the true value of nurse to the world. Next slide, please. Next slide, Vijay, please. Next slide. So here the Florence Nightingale, I'm finishing 2 minutes. The Florence Nightingale said it would take 150 years for the world to know the value of nursing. And of course, now a lot of recognition is being done. But I hope that a day would come when every stakeholder recognizes the value of nurses. To achieve this, we need to be self-worthy and we need to acknowledge, the nurse leaders need to acknowledge, and the recognition received will help them to go through the struggle. Next slide, please. Next slide, Vijay. Last one. One more. Vijay, last one. 2. Okay, this is the theme. Just go back. Yeah. The next one. Next one. Okay. Costing of nursing care has to be implemented. This is something which I think has to happen. And then the nurse leaders at the hospital have to empower the nurses to become resilient so that they are able to carry out their responsibility. At the same time, if a student comes from any college from the from our country, they need to become efficient, effective, accountable, and compassionate nurses who can be the patient's advocate and who can bring about recognizable patient outcome. For this, both the nursing leaders at the hospital and at the school or at the College of Nursing have to work together. Skip this slide, Vijay, and the last one. So the take home message that I would like to give is that already what we have talked about, the physical endurance, exercise regularly, eat healthy, and foster better communication, resilience training, and promote self-awareness and emotional intelligence, and organize social activities at workplace and meditation. And on the side, what you see is that a resilient nurse who is safe, smart, and a competent and compassionate nurse. She will have IQ, intelligence quotient, which is innate, EQ, emotional quotient, and SQ, the spiritual quotient. Emotional quotient and the spiritual quotient will take care of the mental well-being. And last, the fitness quotient, that is the physical well-being. So if you remember all this, you can be a smart, safe, and resilient nurse. So at the end of it, I thank AHPI for giving this opportunity. And also I conclude by wishing every nurse in our country and all over the world the best of the National Nurses Day. I would call it as not only Happy Nurses Day, safe and Happy Nurses Day. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Professor Jaya. In fact, resilience is, I think, one word which is so important now. Actually, I am able to appreciate this. In fact, we inviting, requesting Dr. Jaya to design a workshop on resilience. Designed a workshop on communication. I think the Alexander is the key man on the communication. He will request you to design a workshop on resilience. So with that few words, I also would like to mention that AHPI promoted a new outfit, any, Association of Nurse Executive India, because that promotes the leadership quality in the nursing community, and the NE is doing good work along with the HPI. So with that note, now I'm coming back to our overseas speaker, Lt Susan Edamala. She is a clinical nurse consultant at University of Illinois, Chicago. Good part is she passed BSc nursing from India, AFMC, our pride institute of the country. She also did masters in clinical leadership and management at North Park University, Chicago. And presently, she's, as I said, she's working as clinical nurse consultant. 22 years of experience as critical care nurse. And later on, she moved into the clinical documentation integrity in year 2013. I think with this such a rich background and with origin in India, I am sure Susan is going to add a lot of value to this webinar. Welcome, Lt Susan.
Thank you so much. I've not been addressed as lieutenant in a long time, so this is really very refreshing and rejuvenating. Thank you. Vijay, I would like to share my own screen, so I'm going to begin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please go ahead, ma'am. It is open.
Okay, good evening to everybody in India, and good morning to my fellow nursing audience in the United States. Happy Nurses Day on behalf of all the nurses of United States to my fellow nurses in India. I would like to dedicate this presentation to the nurses of this world for their invaluable contribution to the profession of nursing, as well as to the world as a whole. In the last 1 week, we have been having many eminent speakers and nursing professionals and leaders speak to us about how they are managing the COVID pandemic in India. So we've heard about that strategic management, how efficient they are from grassroots level to executives. We've got a tremendous amount of information about the management, and we in United States, I think we have a lot to learn on how you are performing in this field right now. So being the last presentation of the series of webinars, first of all, at the very outset, let me just thank AHPI and Microlabs for providing me this platform to be part of you and helping us to exchange our knowledge, experience, and expertise so we can learn from each other. So I will be, my topic is very general. It is about the profession of nursing, and I will be talking to you about our worth as nurses in this world. So where we are as a profession today, where we were, and where we are going. So this year is extra special for us because we get to celebrate not just this day as Nurses Day or this week as Nurses Week, but this whole year has been dedicated to us. So WHO declared this year as the year 2020 as the year of the nurse and the midwife. And according to the Daily Pulse, which is a publication here, the reason they say that we have been chosen as a profession to be honored this year is because it is the 200th anniversary of Florence Nightingale, who is our founder, the founder of modern nursing. Nurses make up majority of the world's healthcare force. And the first State of the World's Nursing Report is to be released this year by WHO. And 2020 also happens to be the culmination of the Nursing Now campaign that was launched by the International Council of Nursing in 2018. And there are about more than 100 participant countries right now participating in that. So what is nursing? What's the beauty of nursing? I love nursing. I have so much passion for my profession because everybody calls it's a noble profession. I would say it's a wholesome profession, not just a noble profession. So nursing is an art with a heart and a science with conscience. It's the heart and soul of caring. A nurse holds off her own tears to draw smiles in the patient's face. She does what no one else does in a way that no one else can do. She goes above and beyond the call of duty. She makes a difference in people's lives every day, and she shares the most sacred moments of lives with them. For example, in the birth of a child or in assisting with a patient who's dying. So I would say the profession of nursing is the closest to divinity. To be a nurse is to be an honor to the soul. So what do people see about nursing? What they see is just a tip of the iceberg. Nursing role is far-reaching and much broader. Whatever may be your interest or whatever your personality, the nursing profession has a place for you. You have seen the compassionate bedside nurse. You've seen a passionate teacher in a classroom in a university. You have seen the dynamism of a CNO or a CNE in a hospital. You've seen the resilience and the action-packed nurse who performs in the ER and the ICU. You've seen the tech-savvy nurse as the informatics nurses, the data-driven public health nurses, the detective-minded clinical documentation integrity nurses, and the inquisitive researchers. So nursing profession has embraced us all, and it helps us grow, evolve, flourish, and thrive. Nursing is a very powerful profession that impacts the society at various levels. So I would classify this as the power of nursing as the micro power and the macro power of nursing. The micro power is what we focus, what everybody knows about us, that is, we work around the objectives of prevention of illness, promotion of health, cure and care, and rehabilitation, for which the nurse wears multiple hats. So she functions in the role of a care provider, an educator, an advocate, a manager, a collaborator, a leader, and a researcher. The macro power of nursing has been beautifully put by Howard Catton, who happens to be the CEO of International Council of Nursing. And according to her, the power and the potential for what we can do as nurses, not just for ourselves, but for the sake of the health of this planet, is limitless. So what we are doing now has so much more scope. We have so much more power and so much farther to go, as Dr. Devi Shetty already mentioned, and it is in our own hands how we use this power. So let us talk a little bit about our journey from the past. So from the Crimean War, now we are here to the COVID war. So our past, as we all know, the history of nursing profession, initially the care of the sick was traditionally was done in the homes. And later on, caring became a part of the church and charity. And nuns usually were the people who took care of the sick, the destitute, and the homeless. And that is why we as nurses get our name as sisters, because nuns were called as sisters. So a lot of nurses, especially in India, we are called as sisters. So in the 19th century, we know that urbanization and industrialization took place and then hospitals originated. But we can be so proud because the fun fact that I just came to know that is our history of nursing dates back to 250 BC, because we just discovered that King Ashoka's pillars has inscription of nurses mentioned on them. So we have a far more older and richer history of nursing in our country. So from 1870 to 1899, nursing training schools started everywhere around the world. And then in the 19th century, nursing associations were formed. So from 1960 to the present, where there has been a steady advancement of nursing education. So in the beginning, our profession started like an apprenticeship training around the bedside. And now it has grown to a full-fledged profession with, we have our own theories, our own theorists, our own models of care and our own principles. And we have formal education that awards our professionals with various degrees. We start from associate degree and diploma in nursing to baccalaureate in nursing, and then we have masters, and we have the doctor of nursing practice and the PhD nurses who lead the nursing profession. So we have come a long way, and we still have a lot to do in our profession. So coming from our past, let us see what we have in the present. So our present, we have a lot to celebrate. We can't underestimate or undermine our achievements. We have about close to 28 million nurses worldwide today. Nurses make up half of the professional healthcare workforce. And that is why 2020 was even recognized by WHO as the year of the nurse and the midwife. Today, we have super specialized nurses with specialty certifications and expertise. We use technology in the delivery of care, and we are having a robust nursing research and evidence-based practice tools. And we have international collaborations and for exchanging knowledge, skill, and training. We talked about our achievements, but we do have a lot of challenges also that we have to face. So today, our challenges mainly are we have a very complex mix of patients. The longer life expectancy has given us patients with multiple comorbidities. So nursing has become much more complicated than how it used to be a few years ago. We have a very fast changing healthcare delivery system. And so the role of nurses taking care of patients has been changing so dramatically and tremendously. So we have our focus of healthcare initially when I was a student nurse was mainly the hospitals. We were having nurses for the hospitals. And now our healthcare delivery system is focused towards home care. And very soon, like in the last few months, a lot of care has become online. The next challenge that we have to face as a profession is our nursing shortage. The average working age, the average age of the nurses who are working as of now, especially in the United States, is determined to be above the age of 50, which means in the next 15 to 20 years, we are going to have a lot of people who retire from the profession. So it is our responsibility to bring in more robust young people into the profession, because otherwise we will have no one to take care of us when we are on that sick bed. About our leadership, nursing leadership, Dr. Devi Shetty already talked about it. I'm just going to touch a little base about, we have a lot of leaders, we have a lot of skill, and we have what we need but we do not have them in the key positions. So our challenge would be to put them in positions that are of importance, where they can make a change by making changes in policies and regulations. We have to face a lot of regulatory barriers, and if these regulatory barriers impede how we use our nurses, we are not able to use them to the full potential because we don't have rules and regulations and protocols that will help us to use them to their full potential. We have technology, which is considered a boon, but it can also be a bane, especially because I talked to Dr. Giridhar in the beginning, and he was saying that nurses complain that they have no time with the patients because they spend a lot of time on documentation. And that's true. So the essence of our profession is the human touch and the compassion and our time with the patient, and technology is driving us away from our patients. So this is another challenge of today that we have to face. And gender inequalities is a challenge because our profession is basically predominantly female oriented. So this has been a problem ever since the beginning. We are kind of trying to address it, and we are having more males come into our profession, but we do have a long way to go. So it would be incomplete to talk about our present without talking about nurses in the face of the pandemic. Nurses have been a part of a pandemic from history, in times immemorial. Historically, we know that from the time of Florence Nightingale, when they went to the Crimean War, to where we are today. In our lifetime, we did not see too many pandemics. This is the first one that we are seeing. The last one was in the last century, the Spanish flu or the influenza pandemic. And then we have had epidemics like H1N1 flu, swine flu, Ebola virus, SARS, MERS, and COVID. So this is the first pandemic that we are facing in our lifetime. The world recognizes the importance of nurses more than ever around the globe today. We are the heroes and the warriors, and nurses have proved their worth beyond doubt during the situation. But what we need to know is there can be no better time than this in history to seize the opportunity and to leverage the momentum in favor of our profession, as we have been put in the spotlight, not just by WHO, but also by the coronavirus. So this is really the time for us to harness our resources and to thrust our profession forward. So what is our future? Our future will be bleak if we do not prepare very strategically for our challenges that we have identified ourselves as our hindrances. So we need strategic planning both locally and globally. Nurse recruitment and retention is one of the very important problems that needs urgent attention. We need to break the barriers and unleash our potential so we can use our nurses at various levels, maybe primary healthcare centers, homes, schools, all over every part of the society. We have a nurse who can bring a change. So we need to use our resources to break those barriers and use them to the best. We need more nurses in leadership potentials, as we already mentioned, not just within the organization or at a state or national level. We need them in key positions in legislature, in regulatory bodies, where we can make policy changes that affect us as as nurses who work at the bedside. If we have a voice in that boardroom from our own, we will have something in our favor, because those leaders understand what we do day in and day out as bedside nurses. We need to address gender equalities, and we need to collaborate with the nursing associations and across the world, as we have been doing. We need it much more, so we learn and exchange our skills and our experiences, our research, so that we have better outcomes for our patients. We need to collaborate with other professionals, not just the healthcare professionals, but I'm talking about other professionals like engineers, businessmen, information systems, because healthcare today is not limited to the hospital, but it is in every part of the society. We use so much technology, and understanding that and integrating that into what we do every day as nurses has become imperative. So as I said before, we need to think globally and act locally. And we need to have a clear vision of the future of nursing. And so I would say that we have to have local actions in place. Nurses' well-being is one of the first and foremost thing that we have to do. We just heard from Dr. Jaya what we can do to build resilience for our nurses. We go into nursing school. It is a tough course. It is not easy. And we want our nurses to last for a lifetime. And that is possible only if we take care of ourselves. We are a wealth. My topic today itself is Indispensable Nurse, the wealth of this world. So if we have identified ourselves as the wealth of this world, shouldn't we be taking care of the precious nurse? It just makes sense that we take care of ourselves. We have been taught this. We have taught the attitude of the practice of maintaining good body mechanics, infection control, and those kind of things. We need to practice it. We need to build a culture of health rather than a culture of illness. We need to prepare nurses to become change agents, because the times demand that we are more adaptable and flexible to the changing scenario in the healthcare. We need to deploy nurses at different levels, understand the skill mix, and we want to see where each one fits the best so that we can use them to the best of their potential. Nursing education and training is very important, and that's where everything will change in this profession. And that is why even though I'm a clinical nurse documentation specialist, I never leave my touch with the students, because that is where we can make a big change, a big impact on how we are going to sculpt our new nurses for the new generation. Nursing education has changed a lot. It is not how it used to be. When I was trained a nurse, we took temperature very differently compared to what we do today. So nursing is changing, and we need to adapt to those changes. And as educators, we need to educate ourselves so that we become better teachers and better people who have core vision to have a greater future for our future nurses. We need to get more stronger people into our profession. And the last is the nursing research. The value of nursing research obviously cannot be underestimated, because we practice evidence-based model of care, and so we need to have research and put our energies into it. Globally, what can we do? Globally, there are so many things that we can rise up to. Collaborating with international bodies, and this is one of the platforms where you have invited another person from another country. So this is the way we exchange our knowledge and expertise and how we can help each other. We have to promote influential leadership. We have to make changes in policies globally and nationally. We have to strengthen the evidence and impact of nursing. And there is no better time than this, because although we have been talking about our profession, not too many people gave the importance, but today we are in a spot, in a place where people know the importance of nursing, and we have to make sure that this continues. And we have to increase our investment in nursing, because investment in nursing is investment in the population, in the people of this world. So if the more you invest in nursing, the more you take it to a higher level, the more are the people who are going to benefit. So it is not just for the profession, it's for the society as a whole. So globally, WHO has really given us this profound impetus through this year's theme as nurses, as the year of the nurse and the midwife. So through this, the State of the World Nursing Report that is going to be released this year, we are going to have the latest and up-to-date information about the nursing workforce around the world. The role of nurses in achieving the 3 billion goal of WHO, the universal health coverage, and the sustainable development goals. And the next 3 to 5 years, we are going to see a lot of areas of policy development, and hopefully that will be all in favor of our nursing profession. So in conclusion, what I'd like to say is that little did WHO or International Council of Nursing, or anyone for that matter, realize that the year of the 2020 would be the year of the nurse in every sense of the word. Nurses are truly living up to the theme, and I believe Florence Nightingale is proud of us for the profession that we have come to become today. So nursing's presence in this world calls for celebration both during this year and beyond this year as the year of the nurse and midwife. And nurses will always be in the forefront, caring for the world at large, way beyond our current global pandemic. And together we can all do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Susan. And I'm really very happy to say one thing, that when we were designing this webinar, that's the last webinar for the International Nursing Day, we were worried, whom should we bring? I was in my mind sure about one thing, that we must bring one professor, one educationist, and that's where we focused on Jaya. And then we obviously wanted somebody with an international flavor. And after listening to both of you, I can certainly say that the day has been very rewarding. You have spoken like leaders, as a mature leader, and I think you have given us a roadmap. I'm sure the participants who have listened to you must have been inspired. And I'm sure that we are going to have not many webinars and programs with the two of you together sometimes separately. And once again, I'm grateful to Lieutenant Susan and Jaya to have agreed to come on our webinar. I will, Dr. Alex, you want to add something?
No, I think, it was a very useful webinar, and from the attendance, you can see that it got a big audience. You inspired them, and all we can say is that we want to assure you that AHPI will be with you in your journey towards recognition, towards empowerment for the benefits of our patients. Thank you both very much.
And I thank now Microlab, who has been, supporting us for the.
So before we conclude, there are a couple of questions. Should we take up that question, sir? From the audience side, there are one or two questions which I felt that probably can be taken up. One question was asked, there's a note, name of, if you go to Q&A session, is India a member of ICN? Then that was a question, probably if any one of the speakers can take up.
Dr. Jaya, you may answer that.
Is India a member of ICN? Yes. No individuals can become the member, but then the Trained Nurses Association of India is the member of the ICN.
So as individuals, we do have a we have a voice in our own states and our own state nursing associations, and Trained Nurses Association of India represents all the states and represents the country in the International Council.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe one more question we can take up, sir. This is a passing comment by one of the nurses. It is the right time that nursing gets charged all over India, so that the value is attached by the common man beyond our indispensable work. That's a comment passed by one of the nurses, and there is one query, one question: influence of power and politics in nursing. How do we look into this concern? Influence of power and politics in nursing.
Influence and power and politics. At what level are we talking? Because based on where we are, the way we address it will be different. So as I mentioned in my presentation already, leadership in nursing, and I was so glad to hear Dr. Devi Shetty talking about the importance of nurses, and Dr. Giridhar Gyani too, addressing and saying that, nurses have a voice, nurses have a place in the boardroom. So every time, everybody sees nurses only at the bedside, and that's what I said, as it is the tip of the iceberg that people see nurses do. But nurses do have a lot to do with how healthcare is being impacted at the bedside, because nurses are the people who are at the bedside 24/7. They are the eyes, the ears, the hands of the physicians. You might be the best, excellent surgeon, but if you don't have a good nursing pool to take care of your patients, your surgeries may not be successful. So for our colleagues to identify that the power of nursing, and to empower us at a hospital level in the first place, and then at a state level national level and then international level is where we can fight, where we can bring up our profession. So politics, I mean, interpersonal politics within an organization, those are different things that we need to address. We have to come above and beyond, rise above and beyond that. If we want to think of it as a profession where we have to go, we have to put these differences, you know, outside of our realm and then focus on what is our main goal. So, and also, Dr. Devi Shetty very clearly mentioned that we are all fighting for, you know, for nurses' empowerment. But the way nurses practice, I've practiced in 3 countries. I've practiced in India. Obviously, I did not practice in the civil world, but it's very different being an army nurse. So I've seen what happens there. I've seen what happens in the Middle East. I worked in Sharjah for 10 years. At least 5 of those were at the bedside as a critical care nurse. So, you know, everywhere, wherever we are, we have to see above and beyond just today. We have to see where we are going in the long run and make policies, make ourselves felt by others, like make ourselves visible. And that is the only way we can go. So put your, you know, politics aside, empower yourself in a way that you are actually given the autonomy. People respect you for what we are. The way nursing is practiced in the United States is that people, if you say you are an RN, people look at you with respect. A patient at the bedside is not asking for who is my doctor, they're asking who is my nurse, because the nurse is the center of care. She's the one who collaborates everything. The patient may talk about who's my doctor when he's out of the hospital, maybe their primary care physician they're talking about. But when they're an inpatient, they're always talking about their nurse, because all the healthcare team members collaborate with this primary nurse to carry out anything that they do for the patient. So it is, we don't have this power struggle that you are higher than me, or I am your assistant, or I have to take orders. And I tell my students, if that was what a profession was about, you don't have to go to nursing school for 4 years, you know, to get a baccalaureate degree to be entry-level nurses. We can be orderlies. You know, you write orders, I follow your orders. We don't need to have any brains or the kind of tough nursing education that we have today. The only reason that we are doing all this is because we want our nurses to have empowerment, know what they're doing, and have the same goal as physicians or anyone else in the healthcare system, that is better outcomes for our patients. So we need to work with this.
So these are the excellent word coming from Susan. In fact, the sentence which I will remember throughout, that patients ask, who is my nurse? I think this is the word, you know, which actually makes people to be proud nurse. In fact, I'm seeing the comments on my laptop. Everybody is talking so high about both of you. And in fact, everybody saying we are proud of our 2 speakers, you know. So I think that is a love and affection you have created through your talks today, both of you. And now I'll let to Raja for the concluding remarks.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So it's been really nice to go through all the speakers, and I think thanks for sparing each and everyone's time. So all that starts well, ends well. I hope today's special edition of our webinar has reached to over 500 plus audience through Zoom and as well as YouTube. I've been seeing the participants from even Dubai, as well as a couple of students from students participating, and across the country, the nurses participating, the way they are introducing themselves in the chat box. So we are quite excited, and I'm sure we are in the position of contribute something to the society of nurses. That is very, very important. And today, in fact, was a special edition. Otherwise, we have been completed almost close to six editions already, and we had over 3,500 plus audience so far visiting our particular page and listening to the talks of various eminent speakers so far. So first of all, I got to thank our chief guest, Dr. Devi Shetty, founder and chairman of Narayana Hrudaya Hospital, for delivering today's keynote address. I also thank Dr. Giridhar Gyan as well as Dr. Alexander Thomas for accepting to moderate the session despite their busy schedules. We express our gratitude to both the speakers, Professor Dr. Jaya Kuruvilla, as well as from Lieutenant Susan Edamala. I'm sure you're happy about me also telling about your lieutenant. Clinical nurse consultant, University of Illinois, for helping the nursing leaders to understand today's topic in a simpler manner. Not the least, I express our sincere thanks to Shikhar Gupta, or VC Dr. Sanmohan Anandan, and entire team of AHPI who have tirelessly worked and helped us execute this end-to-end series of webinars from May 5th to 12th, being an International Nurses Day. It has been a continuous, so we are Microlabs is truly owed the complete thanks to the AHPI body for helping us get this executed. As the saying goes about nurses, you have the hands that turn caring into action, touch that turns compassion into comfort, smiles that turn love into healing. Truly, this is the art of nursing. I really thank each and every Nightingales for having spared their valuable time and helping in knowledge dissemination. And as the theme for the day goes, nurses, you are truly indispensable and the wealth of this world. We wish and pray for your well-being and good health always, and salute your sacrifices and contributions during this COVID crisis too. Wish you all a happy International Nurses Day and stay blessed. Thank you very much, one and all.
Thank you. See you again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan, ma'am. Thank you, my Dr. Jaya, once again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.